So who's going to run in 2028, and do the Democrats have the right platform? That's the subject of today's video. And check out what Steve Bannon, one of the Trump people, had to say about this.
For a third term, is there any Democrat who scares you that he could be running against? Because I guess if we allow that, it could be Obama.
Absolutely. I think that'd be great. Alien versus Predator. Let's do it. President Trump already said. President Trump already said.
That's kind of a worse insult to Trump.
If you want to bring President Obama, who I think has lost his fastball, but go ahead and bring him.
Okay. So the discussion there was, going into 2028, is Trump going to go for a third term? Are they going to change the Constitution, et cetera? And then the counter would be, well, if Trump's going to run again for a third, why not Obama, right? That would be the discussion. Now, assuming that doesn't happen, I'll put that at a very low probability, but in USA these days, who knows? Have a listen to what else they're talking about.
Okay, right now, all the governors you have, I don't think anybody will stand up to Trump. You're going to have to run someone like a Stephen A. Smith or someone in your kind of celebrity category. That'll be the Democratic nominee that would have the best shot at President Trump. But I think he's unbeatable. I think he's unbeatable because the coalition.
So first he's saying you have to run a celebrity. Stephen A. Smith is a sports analyst, which we'll get into a moment here, which is, I guess his name is popping up in terms of a presidential candidate. And then now he's saying, hey, but I think Trump is unbeatable, according to Bannon. But of course, remember, this is one of Trump's people, so that's why he would say that kind of stuff. Let's see what his explanation is for that.
The coalition that he's built is only going to get bigger because he's bringing back American manufacturing jobs to working class people. Well, and the Democratic Party abandoned working class people for the credentialed class that you talk about all the time. No. And you can't cosplay being a populist.
No, you're right.
If you're not prepared to take hard things like that, like the trade deal.
So the myth, I guess, how I would call it, is that all these manufacturing jobs are coming back. And so that's been the discussion on this stuff, right? And the person that he's talking about, which I want to show you here, who gave an interview today, is a sports analyst. Like, literally, he's on ESPN all the time. Because and I have to explain it because people who aren't American are like, who is this guy? He's entertainment. He's basically an entertainer. We can watch a little bit. You'll see.
Nobody is calling out the president, Donald Trump. I will. And I'm not going to call him names and all of this stuff like stupid folks on the left doing, engaging in incendiary rhetoric. It's unnecessary, it's immature, and it's uncalled for. He's the president of the United States. Treat him with the respect that he deserves, but in the same breath, call him to the carpet for stuff that he's doing.
All right, that was Stephen A. Smith, host of ESPN's First Take. He's one of the most, maybe the most listened to sports commentator in America. Lately, he's been talking a lot about politics.
And it's right. This guy has actually been, he's been on Fox News a lot lately. Now he's on ABC. And I was like, what's this guy doing in politics? You're a sports announcer. Other than, is probably, he's maybe exploring it. He claims that he has billionaires, saying, hey, you should think about running. But this is when I was like, oh my God, is this our politics these days in the USA, to where essentially we're only going to vote for celebrities and people who are fun to watch on TV? That's effectively what it is. Have a listen to see what he says about himself.
That's not something that we should stand for. So I would hope somebody else would step up that's more qualified than me. But if it has to come down to me, it is something I would consider. Yes, I would, because I don't mind the thought of tussling with these folks at all, on the left or the right. All of them disgust me, to be quite honest.
And he's talking about Stephen A. Smith there. He's speaking to a core message that's very popular these days. First, what you have to do is you just have to talk about left, right, left, right, left, right, left this, right, that, right? And just further talk about the divide in USA. That's a really common rhetoric. You'll see it all over YouTube as well. My particular opinion on this stuff, I said it several times. I think about 99.99999% of people are roughly in the same boat. And then essentially whatever reason you can convince, and this would be the Trump camp, if you can convince, people to vote against their interests and vote for billionaires, I guess that's how you win these days. But like this idea that we have, all these different interests is pretty ludicrous. The average person, 99.9999% of us, have the same needs and concerns. But the way that you divide people is, again, just focus on left, right, and divide that kind of stuff. This is what Stephen A. Smith's qualifications are. You can look it up. It's all on Wikipedia. He played basketball. He got hurt, then became a sports analyst. That's basically what it is. and guys, if you like sports, no problem. But I want to address some of the stuff that was talked about in the campaign, because I think there's this false narrative that I've noticed, right? I started to see it with Stephen A. Smith, the guy, the sports analyst who's saying, I want to run for president, or Steve Bannon saying that Democrats don't talk about jobs or anything. This is Kamala Harris in 2024. Just have a listen to what they were talking about.
I will also make sure good paying jobs are available to all Americans, not just those with college degrees. For far too long, our nation has encouraged only one path to success, a four-year college degree. Our nation needs to recognize the value of other paths, additional paths, such as apprenticeships and technical programs.
And then she goes on to talk about, right, they're going to remove the requirement of college degrees for federal jobs, right? And various things. So I'm just bringing this stuff up. I know the election's over, right? We're talking about 2028, not 2024. But I don't like it when people just make stuff up. It's like, oh, yeah, Democrats never talk about jobs. They only talk about DI, woke stuff. Like that's sort of the false narrative that effectively the Republicans are really good at messaging, is getting people focused on trans this, trans that, and not talking about jobs, etc. And even Stephen A. Smith, who, in my opinion, is basically just an entertainer, says the same kind of stuff. So have a listen, and I'll just show you guys what I'm saying, what I'm talking about here.
Elizabeth Warren was just on with you. You're going to have a multitude of Democratic representatives on with you. They talk and they talk and they talk, but what can they do? They position themselves to do absolutely nothing. I didn't hear anything about tariffs from the Democrats before the election.
Just be clear, he's saying, I didn't hear anything about tariffs from the Democrats, so that's what he's saying, right? This is Stephen A. Smith, who may run for the Democrat nomination for president.
Trump had been preaching about this for the longest time. The way people decry his strategy, he's been bloviating about that. They said nothing about it. Instead, they talked about everything from woke culture to cancer culture to abortion rights and all of this other stuff. But that wasn't going to win the election. And that's what we have to look at. What is it going to take to get the job done? That's why somebody who's a sports analyst, for crying out loud, is in the daggone polls. It's not somebody big up in me. It's an indictment.
So two things. So one is, right, he's saying sports analyst, and he even says in the interview he's not really that qualified, is being considered to run for president. And I'm just like, oh my God, is this where our U.S. politics are? And then he makes the claim that Democrats only talk about DI woke stuff and that there was no mention on tariffs. That was his claim. So this was Kamala Harris talking about tariffs back in 2024. I just want to put this out there so you understand that lots of stuff that these people say is just frankly nonsense.
Now, our biggest challenge is to lower costs that were rising even before the pandemic and that are still too high. I get it. I still remember our mother sitting at that yellow Formica table, late at night, cup of tea in hand, a pile of bills in front of her, trying to make it all work. And I've heard from so many of you who are facing even greater financial pressures. Donald Trump's answer to you is the same as it was the last time. Another $1 trillion in tax cuts for billionaires and big corporations. And this time, he will pay for it with a 20% national sales tax on everything you buy that is imported. Think about it. Clothes, food, toys, cell phones. A Trump sales tax that would cost the average family nearly $4,000 more a year.
So the actual cost came in, the current projections, we're talking about $4,800 a year. So she was right in the ballpark. But all this stuff was actually talked about during the election. There were several articles. I would make videos about this kind of stuff. Economists would come out and give projections on these things. The problem that we face is we have... It's hard to be polite about this, but we'll just say this. We have a population that can't understand stuff, right? So for me, when I watch Kamala Harris speak, it's easy for me to understand. Probably if you're watching my channel, you can probably understand it too. It's if you actually pay attention and calm down and listen, you can understand it. But unfortunately in the USA, we have this sort of TikTok-y attention span. People just only listen to celebrities, and I guess if you yell enough and shout enough, then they finally get your attention. And if you're Kamala Harris, and also just be honest, if you're a woman or if you're someone of color, you have a much steeper hill to climb. People in the USA, if you just, like I said, you have to be honest about this. If you're a white dude and you scream and you yell like Trump does, people are like, oh, wow, he's white, he's a guy, and he screams and yells. He must be really strong and know what he's talking about. Like, and it's like, how do you communicate that kind of audience? And so it's frustrating when I see the daily stuff going on in USA, be it on Bill Maher and Steve Bannon talking, oh, Democrats never talk about jobs and Democrats blah, blah, blah. And it's like, they're just making stuff up. And even Stephen A., who's like a sports analyst, is saying, well, Democrats never talk about jobs. They never talked about the tariffs. And like, literally, I'm showing you footage of Kamala Harris talking about that stuff. It's frankly insane. But this is where we are. Let's listen to a little bit more. You'll see what I'm getting at.
The fact of the matter is the American people have already said during the last election he's a bit more normal or closer to normal than the Democratic Party. And that's where the real problem lies. It's not it might be a two-party system, but there's only one party running this country right now because the Democrats have no muscle whatsoever.
That's sort of the line that these people take is, hey, the Democrats have no muscle. Trump came across as more normal. I don't know. I mean, I think it's more easily explained by there's a bunch of dudes out there that won't vote for women. I think that's probably the main thing. No matter what she would say, no matter how much more sane she would come across, there's dudes out there that won't vote for a woman. And it's really hard to overcome that kind of bad culture in USA. I'll just leave it at that. For me, and I just want to make it really clear, I think it's important for people to come out and say this. I'm a dude. I'm fine having a woman as president. And I've said that so many times. It's just not a big deal to me. It doesn't matter which background you come from, for me, if you're going to have good policies, you're going to be a sane person, you're going to have, sane people in your cabinet. And like, it's funny because like whenever we have to deal with this whole Trump stuff, because I lived through 2016, and if you're watching, you probably did as well. We want to just get back to a point of like, can we just have just competent people in there? It's like the bar was set so low. And I didn't even think it'd be this bad as it is this time around. Because I know when Trump came in talking about the second time, people are saying the sky is falling and he's going to burn the country down, that kind of stuff. My expectations were, I'm not thrilled about Trump running the show again, but I did think it'd be this bad. Seeing Elon Musk coming in and do this stuff, and it's like, oh my God, like now we're talking third terms. And and some people could say, hey, Chris, I told you so. It was going to be this bad. I don't know if anyone could have predicted it would be this bad. I mean, it really is bad. And it's hard to, you can talk about this. And, for me, honestly, when I go back and I watch some of the older videos of what Kamala Harris was saying, it's frustrating. And then, like I said, I think a lot of it has to do with sort of where we are in American culture. And a lot of dudes won't vote for a woman, and it's tough. And also, too, the election comes down to just a few states, the swing states. The Republicans and stuff like that, they're going to say, oh, Democrats have no plan, etc. Just listen a little bit more of what Kamala was saying.
You will pay even more if Donald Trump finally gets his way and repeals the Affordable Care Act, which would throw millions of Americans off their health insurance and take us back to when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions. Well, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back.
She lost. I get it. But I just wanted to show guys that not everyone in America was completely blind to what Trump was up to, right? I could see it. You could see it. Kamala Harris could see it. It was in their speech writing. They're talking about tariffs. He wants to, repeal health insurance, et cetera. And if you want to look at what Democrats talk about all the time, they talk about education, fair wages, right? Talk about strengthening unions, any number of things. It's not just a DEI, and I should say it fully too, because it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when you say the full words, it has a different meaning than just using letters, which sort of devalue what we're talking about here. But that wasn't even necessarily the most important things, right? And literally, I can read the post. Trump wants to impose a 20% national sales tax, so referring to tariffs. You have to put it in terms of tax so people can easily understand it. Again, the voting base in the USA, they have a hard time understanding these kind of stuff. It's just what it is. I'm just being honest about it. So sales tax and everything you buy that is imported, it would cost the average family nearly $4,000 a year. I will enact the first ever federal ban on price gouging on groceries, which I actually thought wasn't a crazy thing to be talking about. And then I remember when she mentioned this, the Republicans would say, "Oh, it's just all communist policy," and basically, it's hard to have these discussions because then you have Elon Musk then spreading misinformation nonstop. The other issues we have, and I'll just be honest with you as well, is our media structure in the USA. Our TV things, like, and say, for example, here in Korea, a lot of stuff that would happen on TV in USA would be illegal here. I used to work at the radio station here in Busan, if you guys don't know. And basically, if I were to just lie or make stuff up or endorse products, or like there's a bunch of things that I couldn't say if I were to, just, again, lie on air, the radio station would get fined or possibly lose license. In USA, it's like on a daily basis, people just come on TV and just lie. YouTube is a whole other thing. I mean, you guys know this. It's how can I say? People's licenses don't necessarily get removed. Now, then you got this whole issue of like where right wingers just lie or spread hate or whatever kind of stuff, and then they get banned from YouTube and they move over to whatever Rumble or Twitter, and then they complain about free speech, etc. It's like it's a system because of the First Amendment. And I'm not against the First Amendment. I understand that it's important for free speech. I really understand, right? But there are limits to that, and that's also where the conversation comes in, to where someone like an Elon Musk, he thinks free speech is also false advertising, which I completely disagree. Like these kind of things, and I know I'm getting off on tangents, but I'm just saying that it is really, really tough in USA with so much misinformation, disinformation out there, and I'll leave it at that. So just had to get some things off my chest when it's stuff I was seeing today. I'd like to hear your thoughts as well, and I'll catch you on the next video.